Welcome back to Tied Down TV, the punk rock opinion show with me, Danny.
Geoff.
And today we're talking about our top 5 films featuring good punk adjacent soundtracks. Now, just to clear something up, if you're a long time subscriber and watcher of this show, way back, one of our first videos.
18, I think it was.
18?
Episode 18.
That's further back than I thought then. We actually did punk movies. Now, obviously anything, art can be punk, you know, an attitude can be punk, and movies can be punk. And in that video, we did cover the likes of Suburbia, Repo Man, Made in Britain, Return of the Living Dead. These are, you know, stuff like that, stuff that, you know, were aesthetically punk, they were about punks. This is something different. This is films with just punk adjacent soundtracks. That could be Hollywood blockbusters or, you know, little art house independents. Mm-hmm. And, you know, films to me, film was my first love. And I was like, before music even, you know, I was always been a collector of films. Ever since I was a child, like I'd save my dinner money in school and go to Rock Second Hand and Liscard. I was a big collector of VHSs, and it was my VHS collection was my pride and joy. People would come round to my house, borrow videos. I'd have to make a little note, make sure who had what, because I used to borrow so many out.
So a little rental shop.
Exactly.
Yeah, same. I love movies as well, and VHS. I used to buy the blank one so I could tape a film off the telly if it was one that I loved and I wanted a copy of it. Yeah, and when you say punk adjacent, that encompasses anything that's within the world of punk music. Yeah. For us. So just it's actually interesting what you're saying there, because I was considering. I haven't picked these movies. But I was considering some of the Robert Rodriguez films from the 90s, like Desperado and From Dusk Till Dawn. Because even though they don't have punk songs exactly, a lot of the like Tito Tarantula stuff and all that, it's like Mexican garage rock, innit? Yeah, absolutely.
So I was considering stuff like that.
I think that would have been valid. There's one movie I've picked where it's older than punk as a term and as a style of music.
Yeah.
But, you know, it fits enough for me that I'm picking it.
Yeah, too right, yeah.
Yeah.
So go on then, hit us off.
Okay, so the first one I'm going to pick was one of the first ones I thought of, and it was a big movie for me, this, when I was growing up. Empire Records. Came out in 95, directed by Alan Moyle. It's set in a record store called Empire Records, like an independent-y kind of style one. All the staff are all misfits, skaters, punks, you know, just general sort of outsiders. It's got Liv Tyler, Renee Zellweger, Robin Tunney, all before they kind of, you know, or just were on the cusp of becoming bigger stars. The soundtrack right through it is kind of a mix of like indie, jangly pop stuff, and also there's some absolute straight up some hardcore and some punk. Quicksand, Adolescents are on there. Suicidal Tendencies, Grosse was a great scene where one of them's eating brownies laced with hash, and he imagines himself on getting eaten by one of the things on stage when Grosse are playing. Evan Dando, the singer from the Lemonheads, covers a Big Star song on it as well. It's fucking beautiful. Just a great movie, quite formative for me as well, because I saw it when I was quite young, and I kind of wanted to work in that style at that kind of place. It was a little bit free and loose. Everyone was kind of, you know, having fun, and you know, it's great. It's a 90-minute movie, kind of perfect. I watched it again the other day and still really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's my first pick.
I watched that film a few years ago. I wasn't a big fan of it, actually.
No,
I expected to be a big fan of it because I thought it'd be similar to High Fidelity.
I feel like it's a film that you need to see, for me anyway, because I saw it when I was a young teenager. I think if I
catch it at the right time.
Yeah, I think get what you mean. If you've seen it for the first time now, it might not go over that well.
Yeah. My first pick, I've gone for Judgement Night from 1993, directed by Stephen Hopkins. Now, I believe this film, the soundtrack is that iconic that it's probably more well known for its soundtrack from a lot of people than the actual film itself.
100%.
Now, just to go through the film pretty quickly, it's about four guys. Emilio Estevez, Cuba Gooding Jr., Stephen Dorff, Jeremy Piven, who go on a lads' night out in an RV to a sporting event. They take a shortcut, end up breaking down on the wrong side of the tracks while witnessing a gang-style execution. They have no choice but to survive the night while being pursued by this gang who want no witnesses. Now, I know you might recognise this storyline. as something inspired by Walter Hill's previous works, like The Warriors and like, I'd probably say more accurately, Southern Comfort, which tells the story of a bunch of National Guard who are on a training exercise in the deep South Bayous of Louisiana, and they unintentionally offend a gang of Cajun people, and then they find themselves in a situation where they have to escape these bayous while being pursued by these Cajun people. Now, these films, these like kind of like pursued across pursued in enemy territory kind of movies, I'm a big fan of them. They're all basically loosed on an ancient Greek story of Xenophon's Anabasis, which is where it's an old story where a group of Greek mercenaries, after the killing of their leader, were left behind enemy lines, and then they found themselves in a perilous situation deep in enemy territory, surrounded on all sides, and they had to get back home. So all these films, like Judgement Night, like The Warriors, like Southern Comfort, they're all inspired by that Greek story, and Walter Hill said that himself. Now, outside of the soundtrack, the score is also brilliant because it's done by Alan Silvestri, who does the Predator soundtrack. The score sounds like it could be leftovers from the Predator soundtrack. Right. There's parts in it where you think that is definitely off Predator. But obviously, let's get into the soundtrack, because you've got, obviously, Just Another Victim, Helmet and House of Pain, Biohazard and Onyx with the title track Judgement Night. One of my favourites on it is Therapy and Joe Fatal, Come and Die. Now, even the opening track, which is Teenage Fan Club and De La Soul, Fallen, which is kind of, it's not kind of the same characteristics as the rest of the soundtrack. It's kind of a happy song, and it's a really interesting opening. While that's playing, we see a sunny day in a suburban neighbourhood. There's a lad delivering papers on his bicycle, drives through some leaves. The guy whose house it is gets dead angry and like throws a newspaper at the kid. It's letting us know that the perfect life we are seeing here, this perfect suburban life we are seeing here, is a far cry to what these characters are going to find themselves in shortly. It's letting you know that they are going to be very far from home very soon and going to find themselves in a really perilous situation. Now, the film itself, I do think, is a bit of a 90s classic. However, compared to the films that I previously spoke about, The Warriors and Southern Comfort, I do believe it's the weaker of the three. But if you enjoy films like this, obviously check them out. And also, another film that came out around the same time that has a very similar soundtrack and kind of a similar story and atmosphere is a film called Trespass with William Sadler and Bill Paxton. Very, very similar film, very similar soundtrack. Check that out. I think I've covered Judgment Night there.
I think you have.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, number 2 for me. I've gone for Grosse Pointe Blank, 1997. Directed by George Armitage. This is like a 90s comedy, stars John Cusack, Dan Aykroyd, Alan Arkin, Joan Cusack as well. Stories, John Cusack's a hitman who gets a job that ties in with his 10-year high school reunion. So eventually he decides to go back and see the long-lost love of his life, Minnie Driver, as well. Alan Arkin plays his like therapist who has told him he doesn't actually want to be a therapist anymore when he found out he was a hitman, but he still persists on turning up and stuff anyway. Soundtrack's incredible. So the film score, for instance, is done by Joe Strummer. So obviously there's its punk cred straight away. Then you've got the specials doing Press Drop. You also got Your Wondering Now's in there. I think Rudy Can't Fail pops up in there as well. I mean, Rudy Can't Fail by The Clash does pop up in there. Message to You, Rudy by the Specials as well. Violent Femmes, Blister in the Sun. Absolute Beginners by The Jam. Pixies, Monkeys Gone to Heaven. Killing Moon by Echo and the Bunnymen. Amazing soundtrack, and a film I actually really enjoyed it. The chemistry and the dialogue between Dan Aykroyd and John Cusack, it gets me every time I watch it. So yeah, that's my second pick. It's fucking a great like 90s comedy.
Can't really go wrong with those actors that Jeff's just mentioned there. Some brilliant actors. I love Alan Arkin as well. He's amazing.
Honestly.
Yeah. My next pick, I've gone from 1994, The Crow, directed by Alexander Proyas. Starring the late great Brandon Lee, Michael Wincott and Ernie Hudson. Now, it's a bit of a weird one for me, The Crow, because I do believe it's a little bit overrated. As a huge Brandon Lee fan, As a huge action movie fan, I do believe he was in films that were far better than this, in my opinion, that a lot of, your casual action movie fans don't really appreciate. The movie Legacy of Rage, I feel, is much stronger than The Crow. I might be biased coming to Hong Kong movies. Rapid Fire, I believe, is his best film. I even prefer Showdown in Little Tokyo, which is like a buddy cop he did with Dolph Lundgren. I understand people would think that The Crow is a better quality of work. It is obviously the punk rock opinion show, and this is my opinion. I've always thought that The Crow was slightly overrated myself. I do think the atmosphere is fantastic, very much like the film Seven. You don't see daylight, I don't believe, through the whole film. No. The atmosphere is fantastic. The way it's, I think it's nighttime. The whole film. Now, obviously, the film was marked by tragedy when Brandon Lee was shot by the character by the actor Michael Massey, who played the character Funboy, and they had to finish the film with doubles. You wouldn't be able to tell, to be honest. It's really well done. But as for the soundtrack, I think the good thing about this film is I think the soundtrack, the songs in the soundtrack have been picked for the scene so well.
Yeah.
So, for instance, The Cure, Burn, what a song that is. Now, that song is playing after Brandon Lee comes back to life after being killed, and he gets back to his flat and he has the flashback of what happened to him, how he got thrown out the window, he sees what happened to his missus and all of that. And then when he sees the Crow for the first time and he realises his calling, and that's when Burn by The Cure comes on, and that's when he starts putting the makeup on and all the gear. And then the last shot you see in that scene is him stood in the window, and that's when he becomes the avenging angel, so to speak. Obviously, then you've got Helmet with Milk Toast. Helmet seemed to be the go-to band for soundtracks, especially for in the 90s. Films, you got Rollins Band with Ghost Rider, Pantera with a Poison Idea cover, The Badge. But I'm going to say now, I am not a Nine Inch Nails fan in any way, shape or form, and I'm a huge Joy Division fan, so I should hate this. But their cover of Dead Souls by Joy Division in this movie is absolutely, they do a really fucking good job of it. And again, it's picked on a really good scene. The scene it is picked on is when Eric Draven, Brandon Lee, is pursuing his first victim, which is Tintin, and he's running along the rooftops, and it's playing it, and he's jumping up and he's swinging and all that, and it's really brilliantly picked, really cleverly picked songs for this film. And it's another thing as well about The Crow. I mean, I don't think it's a bad film by any shape. I just think it's overrated by people who aren't really familiar with the rest of Brandon Lee's work. That's what it is. But another thing I do really admire about The Crow is that and Blade and the original Punisher with Dolph Lundgren. They were kind of comic book movies before this whole thing erupted, like 20 years later, 25, 30 years later, whatever, and just ruined cinema. Mm-hmm. They had proper actors in, like you say, you got Brandon Lee, you got Michael Wincott, you got Ernie Hudson, you got David Patrick Kelly, who's amazing in everything. Do you know what I mean? You've got like really good actors in this playing really memorable parts. So that's another good thing I think about The Crow.
Yeah, cool. Nice. All right. So my third pick, so this is the one I've picked where I said this is before really punk was a thing, but for me the soundtrack's still quite punk. And the film definitely is. It's Easy Rider.
What a film.
What a film. 1969. Written by the main stars, Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda. Directed by Dennis Hopper. Produced by Peter Fonda as well. It's an amazing film. Like, this film, there's 4 or 5 films that my dad showed me when I was really young because he absolutely loved them. It was Blues Brothers, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Easy Rider, Monty Python Holy Grail. And I still adore all of those films now. This is a film that I haven't watched it for a good few years, but the soundtrack actually does mean a lot to me as well because I've got it on vinyl. It was my dad's. He gave me it when he gave me all his records a while back. The soundtrack's just it's obviously Steppenwolf, Born to Be Wild. They do the Push as well. You've got Jimi Hendrix of 6 Was 9, The Byrds, One Bone to Follow, Electric Prunes on there, and it's very psychedelic, very cool. That psyche, garagey, maybe even a bit folky at times. All again just fits perfectly with the movie. Jack Nicholson, when he pops up, is just there you go. That's again, my dad does that every time he has a sip of whiskey. He goes,
What's that thing he says as well? He goes, that was a UFO looking back.
Yeah,
Me and Eric Heisman seen 40 of them flying in
That monologue though, when he tells that, it's fucking brilliant, isn't it? Absolutely essential film. This, like, I'm not like, he's miles more of a movie buff than I am, and road movies aren't necessarily things that I know a ton of the backstory of and histories of, but this is for me a quintessential piece of cinema and an amazing soundtrack. If you've not seen it, you should definitely go and watch it.
I think it qualifies not just for the soundtrack, but I think we could have put it on our video about punk movies.
100%.
You know, Dennis Hopper, you know, a lot of his films were against the mainstream, his whole attitude. And what you were saying there about road movies, you know, a lot of these types of movies, like Easy Rider and stuff, they're not just road movies. You know, what I would call hangout movies. And when I say hangout movies, the story often doesn't have an end game, even though it's more guys hanging out, talking, stuff like that. You look at films like Dazed and Confused, I'd say, is a very similar, like, even though that's not a road movie, it's just guys hanging out, it's people hanging out, having a, you know, it's the situations they get into. The original probably hangout movie is probably Rio Bravo with John Wayne, where they're just hanging out in a jail cell. But yeah, a brilliant choice, Geoff. Brilliant. Yeah. My next pick from 1979, directed by Frank Rodham, Quadrophenia. Now, Quadrophenia, a classic British film, starring Phil Daniels and mod Jimmy, who him and his friends go for a weekend down in Brighton for partying, scrapping. But the story is really about his downward spiral of, I don't know how you would call it, just kind of the situations he ends up in, taking drugs and all that kind of stuff. It's a brilliant film and it's a must-watch for any kind of person into any kind of subculture, I'd say. The soundtrack is mainly made up of mod classics like Booker T and the MGs, Green Onions, the Ronettes, Be My Baby and stuff like that. But it's also got like a lot of garage rocking songs. Obviously, there's a good scene where they're at a house party and Jimmy turns on My Generation by The Who, and they all start like moshing because obviously that is one of the hard rocking garage anthems. And obviously another big song in it is The Kingsmen, Louie Louie, which some people argue is the first ever punk rock song.
It's in the conversation.
In the conversation. Sure. But yeah, check that out, Quadrophenia. I'm sure most of you have seen it.
It's an amazing film.
Yeah.
Right, fourth one for me, I've picked Gummo.
Weird film.
Yeah, so it's Harmony Korine is the director of the first film. So it's set in Xenia, Ohio, just after a tornado has kind of devastated it. It's narrated by Solomon, who's one of the two kids who are kind of, I guess, the main protagonists. The other one's called Tumblr. The narrative is loose to the point where it's barely there, isn't it? You know what I mean? And it kind of and it also intersperses and snapshots with other residents who are living in this town or area, almost kind of just showing how they pass time. But it deals with like alcoholism and drug abuse and like sexual abuse, homophobia, racism, all kind of plays into it as well. It's actually, I watched it again recently because I hadn't seen it for a long time, and it did leave an impression on me the first time I watched it, but I watched it again recently and actually thought it's not bad. It's not a film I could watch all the time, but I kind of like it. It has got a charm to it. But the fucking soundtrack is incredible, and it's so varied. You got Every Day by Buddy Holly's on there, and then you got Dragon Up by Sleep.
Yeah.
You've got what's it called? Gummo Love Theme by Spaz. I Hate God, Serving Time in the Middle of Nowhere. Fucking hell. Mortician are on there. Bathory are on there. Bragiera are on there. It's amazing. And then there's like little like old folk, like I can't remember the name of it. Something about a rooster. The first song in it. It's amazing as well. It's a weird kind of a bit twisted, a little bit dark at times, but again, I think it's a really good film, and the soundtrack is better than the movie. The soundtrack's incredible. But yeah, you should check it out if you haven't seen it. It's definitely something you should watch once, I reckon. I saw it once years ago when it first came out, and I cannot remember much about it, apart from the fact that Linda Manns was in it, and I hadn't seen her in anything other than The Wanderers up until that point. She was an actress that kind of disappeared. I think she's dead now, unfortunately. My next pick is a film that could have easily made it onto
our Punk's video all that time ago. The reason it didn't is I'm not actually a fan of it, but there's no denying the soundtrack's fantastic. And that is from 1998, SLC Punk, directed by James Merendino. I think that is what I've written down there. Look, I'm a fan of Matthew Lillard. I think he's a brilliant actor. I think he's a really talented man. But when I watched, this was a film, it's quite hard to get on these shows. It's hard to find a link to watch it. There's never been a physical format been available on PAL, on Region 2. So when I finally did get round to watching it, I was expecting so much. I am not a fan of this film. I thought it was terrible, actually. I know a lot of people do like it, and that's fine. I just wasn't kind of, I don't know what it was. It just didn't grip me in any way. I just wasn't relating to any of the characters or anything. I just didn't like it. But let me read this out to you for the soundtrack. The Exploited Sex and Violence, Fear, I Love Living in the City, The Stooges 1969, The Specials Too Hot, Ramones Cretin Hop, Blondie Dreamin', Specials Gangsters, Generation X Kiss Me Deadly, Rock and Roll, The Velvet Underground Rock and Roll, The Beat Mirror in the Bathroom, Amoeba by Adolescents, Kill the Poor by Dead Kennedys, Look Back and Laugh by Minor Threat.
Kind of speaks for itself.
Exactly. I'm not a fan of the film, but you cannot deny that's one of the greatest punk soundtracks ever.
That's amazing.
That's all I've got to say about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Alright, last pick for me. I've gone for Rock and Roll High School. It came out in 1979, directed by Alan Arkush and starring PJ Souls. Now, this is a movie that, again, I saw quite a long time ago. I've been into the Ramones since I was a teenager, so I remember getting a copy of this on DVD. And I've had a back and forth love-hate thing with this movie.
It's not a great film.
It's not, but it does have a certain charm.
Of course it has.
And again, the soundtrack, fucking incredible. Obviously, a lot of Ramones is in it. But you've also got songs by Nick Lowe, Brian Eno, MC5, Devo, Eddie and the Hot Rods, Chuck Berry. I can't remember, there's a few others as well, but again, it's definitely a film I think you should see it. I think it does have a little charm to it, even though the acting from some of the Ramones, especially Johnny Ramone, is fucking terrible. There's a couple of scenes in it that make me laugh quite out loud. There's a bit where she's telling Joey that she's written him a song called Rock and Roll High School, and he goes, Rock and Roll High School. It's amazing. And there's a bit where the same scene, actually, she's in the dressing room and they give her a slice of pizza and she kind of just puts it in the envelope with her songs, and Dee Dee Ramone gives her like a look. I don't know why, it just cracks me up, but anyway. The movie's very, it's about a crusty principal who's very uptight and stiff and wants to ban the students from going to see the Ramones or listening to rock and roll music, etc., etc. It's a fun, good time movie with absolutely amazing songs in it. And that's my last pick.
Right, my last pick, I was on a toss-up between two British movies from the 90s, but I've decided to go Trainspotting from 1996, directed by Danny Boyle. Now, the film I was kind of weighing up, the other one was Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels by Guy Ritchie. Two films that kind of encapsulate youth culture in Britain in the 90s, I'd say, with their soundtracks, and with also the dress senses of what these people are wearing a lot of the time, and what's going on and stuff. Trainspotting specifically centers around drug culture. I have a brother who was heavily into that stuff during that time, so I was kind of familiar with the things that are going on in it anyway. But Trainspotting, starring Ewan McGregor, John Lee Miller, Robert Carlyle, it's meant to be a black comedy, but this film still holds one of the most, in my mind, one of the most disturbing scenes I've ever seen in a film, and that is the scene where they are that's shooting heroin in the house, and they're in the house of a couple, and there's a baby in the cot, and I think it's Ewan McGregor, Renton's character. I think I might have forgot, I can't remember. Discovers the baby has died through neglect, basically, and you see it, and it's just, still to this day, I have to fast forward that scene. I can't watch. It's a horrible scene.
And then he has the flashback as well when he's cold turkey.
He's cold turkey. And when that scene's happening, you've got Underworld Dark Train playing, which really fits that scene. Now, Danny Boyle, very much what I said about The Crow, has actually said that he picks his songs very, very carefully in all his films. So he even said, now this film is mainly made up of punk artists and rave dance music artists. Now, he said when he picked the soundtrack for this, he wanted the punk artists that he picked to represent the drug culture.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got Iggy Pop, you've got Lou Reed, Blondie, right? And then he wanted the dance artists to represent the British youth culture at the time. So he's really thought about it, and the way some of the songs are picked per scene, like what I said about The Crow, is really effective. Now, you look at the opening scene where Iggy Pop Lust for Life is playing while Renton and his mates are running from the cops who are chasing them. Dun, 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 dun. You know, really iconic, yeah. It stops on the car,
Yeah.
really iconic opening scene. You know, it's one of them where he smiles like that.
He gets fucking tackled.
Yeah. And then obviously the end scene as well, where Renton decides, doesn't he, that he's going to go for the bag of money with his mates all asleep around him, and he's creeping over, and you've got Underworld, Born Slippy, brilliant fucking song playing, and then that beat comes in as he sees that Spud has opened his eyes, and he's like, is his Spud going to rat him out? Spud's his mate, and all that, and it's like dum 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 dum. Yeah, it's just so yeah, you've got from the punk side of things, you've got Lust for Life by Iggy Pop, you've got Blondie, Atomic, you've got Lou Reed, Perfect Day. But then you've got stuff like New Order, Temptation. You know,
straddling both camps.
Yeah, straddling both camps. Now, this was such a big soundtrack when it came out.
Yeah,
I think it was like
huge.
#1 in the charts for years. I think they even did two like a green cover and an orange cover one, which was like songs that made it into the film and songs that inspired the film. So it was a really big cultural thing when it came out. Trainspotting the film and the soundtrack.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So it's an easy, easy choice, really.
So yeah, it's a fantastic film.
Yeah.
Great soundtrack as well.
So is that all our 5?
That's my 5, yeah.
That's my 5. However, we are talking about films, and this is a pretty relevant thing this week, and it's the return of Cond RA. This week, what did I order? I ordered a copy of Cannibal Apocalypse, starring John Saxon. Film I've always wanted, film I've always wanted to buy, film I've always wanted to watch. Massive fan of John Saxon. I do try and collect the Video Nasties ones that I can get a hold of. Never seen it. Couldn't wait to see it. Comes next day deliveries. Pay 25 quid for it. Turns up. It's a jarred copy. It's a bootleg, and it's not compatible with my Blu-ray player. Well, how about that for a con?
That's a big con.
Who in the right mind would sit there and make jarred DVDs?